what happened this season as progress? Do you feel that this was a step in the right direction for this organization?
You know what, Wes? It's a good question. I think there probably is a longer answer. I think certainly when you're sitting here and you didn't achieve what you felt you could achieve in terms of I felt there was more we could achieve. You always want more. Now, having said that, I certainly think there was some progress, whether that be collectively, whether that be certainly with some individuals. And I think in time we'll look back and there's definitely some things that we will take out of this season. It was a unique season to really sit back and evaluate, which we're going to do now, because there's two parts to it, right? There's the pre-pause and all the things that took place prior to the pause. Then we had a pause. Then we had a second training camp. You come back, and then there's the return to play portion. So when you really analyze the whole body of work, I think there was certainly some steps taken. Now, having said that, we didn't achieve and we didn't get to a place that I thought we were capable of. And so I think there's still more there. There was more to achieve. So, I guess a yes and a no. I think certainly there was steps taken and there was some growth in our group. But the reality is we are where we are. And so there's more work to be done and there's certainly more steps to be taken.
Kristen Anderson, go ahead.
Brad, this is a two-parter question. And keeping in mind that players' health issues are, private information. Did any of your players have COVID-19? This is the subject of why we're in this unprecedented situation. And also, what was Matthew Tkachuk's injury during playoffs?
Sure. Well, I'll get into the injury. As far as the COVID question, Kristen, and I totally respect you answering it. I think we're still under the guise of the league where that information really is distributed from the league standpoint. If that changes, Kristen, I'll certainly get back to everybody and, if we need to on that. As far as injuries, Matthew was dealing with a concussion in the Dallas series. He was concussed, and so we were unsure of his timetable with those. He was going through the concussion protocol, from the time that he was injured, so he was unavailable. And then we had some other injuries throughout the return to play. Rasmus Anderson broke his foot. I think it was in Game 2 of the Winnipeg series. So he was playing with a broken foot. And Sam Bennett had tore a tricep in the Winnipeg series. I think it was both in the same game too. So I think you saw Milan started taking a bunch of face-offs in the Winnipeg series and doing quite well. The basis of that, or where that started, is Sam was unable to take face-offs after he sustained his injury. And then we had, certainly some other guys playing with some, what you would call normal course bumps and bruises that you get that time of year. I think off the top of my head, those are the significant injuries we were dealing with.
Moses Waldo, go ahead. Moses, you stepped on mute there.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, Moses.
When you look at the group and what you have, considering what all transpired throughout this season, I know you kind of touched on a little bit talking about this was a kind of a step up compared to, say, years prior. But when you look at Jeff Ward and what he's done, you don't necessarily, I understand not getting into specifics in terms of giving him a job or not, but do you feel what he did with this team, considering what's all transpired, what were some of the takeaways that you had from him and were pleased with the most?
Yeah, well, I think Jeff and the staff did a really, really good job. I go back to November, and when all the all the situation with Bill took place, right then you're faced with the decision of, when there's going to be a change, which avenue do you go down, and really quite quickly, in talking with our staff here, we made the decision. Ultimately, I made the decision that we were going to stay in-house with all the what I would call a chaos going on. We felt the first and foremost, getting stabilized was priority number one. And you look at all the different options out there. I think Jeff and the staff, number one, knowing the group, first and foremost. And it's easy from the outside to say, well, you could do this, you could do that. When you're living it internally every day, and you have the pulse of your team, we just felt right then and there the most important thing was stabilizing. Bringing somebody from the outside at that particular time, I just didn't think was the right move. Jeff was an experienced guy, felt very strongly that he would be the right guy to take hold of it. But also, not only that, I want to recognize the work of Ryan Huska, Martin Jelena, Jamie Pringle, Jordan Siglet, and then bringing Ray Edwards in. Although he wasn't part of the staff, he had been a part of this group for a while, knew the players, through his development role, knew this coaching staff. So just having some continuity and some consistency there, I thought was important. And then, the other thing I think they did a good job of. This was a team that was a good team that, in my opinion, had lost its way. Right, it was a team that had a very successful regular season the year before. We went through the playoff where we underperformed, but there was still, there was a belief in this group, and I think more than anything, I think Jeff they brought some stability and more mentally than there wasn't a lot of change, tactically and all those types of things. I think it was just releasing people mentally a little bit. And I felt our team played a little freer. But, over the course of the season prior to the pause, we dealt with a number of things, and I think our group handled it very well. I think I said it on many occasions when we met as a group over the pause in our weekly sessions, that I think a lot of the things we went through we're gonna sort of build our resolve, and I think it did do that to a certain degree. But like everything now, we sit and we sort of step back a little bit, take a deep breath, and as I said to Jeff in November, that my job was to support him and the staff 110%. And then once the season was all, we would all sit back, we would have discussions, we would analyze where we're at, and that's what we're going to do, and we'll formulate a plan moving forward.
Peter Labardi, go ahead. Just have to unmute there, Pete.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Brad, I just wonder, with the stage that your organization is at, and you found yourself, like everybody else, being in a bubble. I know that this isn't time to kind of reveal what you found, but in your evaluation, was it good for you and the organization to truly kind of observe everyone in an all the time hockey situation?
Yeah, Pete, it's a good question. The bubble situation was a really unique situation. Our group really embraced it. It's a unique situation there. And I think there's been lots of, discussion and whether it be players, coaches, managers have talked a lot about the experience within there. There's certainly challenges. It's unique, right? You from a personal standpoint, you're in a different situation. You're removed from your family. You're removed from, in some ways, a lot of the anchors in your life. When I say anchor, I mean that in a good way. You know, some of those things that really give you stability and but I thought our team really embraced it. You know, a couple of things early. We got into trouble. I think day 2 of the bubble because all of our team showed up for one of the preseason games and we're sitting and watching it as a group and we didn't really know the rules that we weren't supposed to be there or the players weren't supposed to be there. But you observe those things of how they interact. And what I found, and I don't find it, I didn't find it, Pete, to be a surprise. But they really embraced that whole environment, being together. You know, it was sort of eat, sleep, and play hockey, and they really they're a group that's very close. They enjoy each other's company. They enjoyed. You know, did everybody miss the loved ones in their life? Sure, but they really embraced that time together. And listen, when you sit here, and I guess it dovetails into the earlier question, do I think there's some growth in the group? Yes, but we're also in the business of winning, and I don't want there to be confusion that we think there was growth, but we still feel there's another level that we should achieve and could have achieved. And I feel strongly that we should still be playing in that right now. So, credit to Dallas. That's a really good team we played. They found a way to, to move on in the series, and that's full credit to them. But in some ways, I think it was an opportunity lost on us. So we have to find out the reasons why, and we have to get better. We have to improve. We have to, make those changes necessarily. And that's not necessarily changes, as you've heard me say before. It doesn't mean, just maybe changing people, but changing and continuing to mature in how we do things, learning how to close games out, all those types of things that lend themselves to being a winning organization and a winning team at the most important time of the year. But I certainly felt that our team embraced the bubble concept and enjoyed their time together, enjoyed being with each other, and that really isn't a shock to me, knowing the group as I did.
Eric DeHatchick, go ahead.
Couple of things, Brad. Philosophically, do you see minor tweaks this offseason or significant change to the roster?
Well, I know, Eric, at this time, and I appreciate the question. We have to continue to make our team better. Now you're going to hear that from all but one team this spring. So I don't know. I think when you don't achieve what you hope, and when I say that, I think I'm speaking for our fan base. Everybody sometimes wants a body on the tarmac. Those are all things that we're going to evaluate. We're going to evaluate how we take that next step that we need to take. And like I said, I don't necessarily think that comes with, I know there's always speculation when you end your season prematurely that we think. I'm just going to step back and analyze it with our organization, with the management, and we'll address the things that we need to address. But I don't necessarily think, you're not going to make change just to make change. I've never felt that, never believed it. We'll go into this off season, although it's a different off season. We'll go into it not unlike we have before and analyze where we're at, analyze ways that we can get better, analyze the challenges in front of all the teams in a flat cap world, and make the appropriate changes. So, and again, some of those aren't necessarily just switching out a body. Some of it's working, a lot of it is working with the people you have and finding ways to get them better. But as I sit here today, Eric, that's probably the best answer I can give you. And we'll see what the days and weeks bring ahead of us.
Eric, did you have a follow-up to that as well? Doesn't sound like it. We'll go to Wes Gilbertson.
Brad, Johnny Gaudreau came out this morning and kind of was adamant that he wants to stay in Calgary, that he loves the city. Does it frustrate you at all that there seems to be this feeling amongst some that he can't wait to get on the first plane out of town?
Yeah, I would say this, Wes. Unfortunately, nothing against the good work you guys all do. I don't read a lot of it. You know, I guess the comment I would make is, and I've heard it since I've gotten here, that, two things, and I talk to our players about it. When you're a top player in an organization or a top player in the league, that with that comes responsibility, and the responsibility is when the team does well, you're going to get all the praises. When the team doesn't do well, you're going to take your share of, and probably more than your fair share of the bullets. That's pro sports, right? That's that's pro sports. When the team doesn't do well, start with the manager. He deserves the blame, and then you go down the list. It does. I've always found it odd that people have wanted to take shots at him. In some ways, I think it's very unfair. Like I said, when you're a top player, what comes with that is a lot of responsibility. This guy, he wants to win. He wants to win as badly as anybody does. I really enjoy my relationship with John. He wants to win here in Calgary. And I think even his game took some steps. Now, at the end of the day, like I said, we didn't achieve what we want to achieve. So we're all open to criticism. That's the way of the world. If that's going to bother you, then you're probably in the wrong line of work. But I've got the utmost respect for John, and I know he really enjoys it here. He enjoys his teammates. He loves playing for the fans here, and he wants to have success here. So that's never been ever in question in my mind. What's speculated outside of our dressing room, you're never going to control those things, and you're going to go crazy trying to control them. So I know what's in his heart, and that's being the best possible player he can, and leading this team to success. So that's never ever varied in my mind.
Go back to Eric Francis here. Eric, go ahead.
How would you categorize his playoffs?
Sorry, Eric?
How would you categorize Johnny Gaudreau's playoffs? He told us this morning that he was happy with the way his line played. And I'll let you decide if you would agree with that statement.
Yeah, I think, you know what, Eric, I understand the question. I think you know me well enough. I've never really used this platform to, go at players individually or air my thoughts on individual performance. I think those are best left to good, bad, or indifferent, discussing those with the players. I think I would generally say as a group, we needed to do more, right? We all needed to be, we're done in the first round. There's certainly some positives to take out of it, but at the end of the day, we're done in the first round, and we had higher expectations for that, or excuse me, we had higher expectations of that. So as far as sitting here and critiquing any individual, you know what, we'll handle all of our discussions behind closed doors. Johnny's a top player in this league, and we've got a number of them. And, as a group, we'll all just take a day or two to take this all in and reset, and with a clear mind, decide how we continue to make our team better.
Go back to Kristen Anderson here. Kristen, go ahead.
Brad, in April, you'd said that you had seen enough information from Jeff Ward. I don't know if that position has changed during this unprecedented playoff situation, and obviously the way that it transpired, in terms of making a decision on your head coach. And perhaps you can maybe weigh in on what you did see from Jeff Ward.
Yeah, you know what, Chris, it's similar to what I said earlier. I think, Jeff was somebody a little bit, unique in the fact that when the coaching change was made, it wasn't somebody that you didn't know coming in. Jeff had been with us for a full year prior, and then into November when the change was made. So it was somebody I was very comfortable with. He knew the players knew him, and like I said, I think Jeff and the staff did a good job. Now we have to sit back here as all of us and analyze what took place, the good, bad, the indifferent, where we can get better, and how we best want to move forward. Certainly it's the coaching change itself was unique in how it went down. I don't, I really, and I've talked to people close to me. I never, and I think I've said this before, is I don't think you have success churning people over all the time. You need stability. And that's certainly not been the plan here in terms of the coaching position. But we've gone through what we've gone through. So now we have to remove ourselves a little bit from the situation, take a deep breath to let all the emotional stuff drain out and make clear decisions. I spoke with Jeff yesterday, very upfront, and said, listen, I like the job you did. There's areas that him and I will discuss, and ultimately I got to sit down with our staff, get some input, and we'll make a decision how we best move forward.
Time for a few more here. Ryan Pike, go ahead.
Hey, Brad. Sort of jumping off of Kristen's question. Do you have a timeline in mind for when you would like to have a coaching staff in place for next season? I mean, even if Jeff returns, I'm not sure if you envision Ray Edwards being an assistant coach permanently or moving back to the development role he was in. So I guess just generally, like, when would you like to have the coaching staff in place?
Well, as soon as possible, but we've got some time here, Ryan. It's not something we're going to wait for 3 months to do, but I think it's important here. When your season ended Thursday and you go through all the emotional stuff you go through at the end of the season, I think it's important to look at it through a clear, unemotional lens. So we'll act at the appropriate time, and we'll give it the appropriate time to review. But to give you a date, on this date it's going to happen, but we'll have a plan in place and plenty of time to move forward accordingly.
Back to Eric Duhatschek here. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, Brad, I just wanted to follow up on your comment about the flat cap going forward. 8 fairly prominent UFAs, 5 on the blue line, 16 million in cap space left. I'm sure that every general manager in the league is going to have the same problem, but how do you shoehorn all those people in with those limited dollars that the flat cap is going to make you work with?
Yeah, it's a good question, Eric. It's something we've been looking at for a while. Obviously, we've gotten the rules and regulations on the cap once we had the CBA done prior to the return to play. So we've been looking at some things. Obviously, we think a full year next year of Juuso Välimäki, we expect to be certainly a player. He's coming off a significant injury, but we're looking to add him. We've got some young players in the pipeline that we want to see at training camp to see where they all fit in. But certainly, we've got some decisions to make with a number of our UFA players. Outside of the UFA players and Andrew, who requires a new contract as an RFA, we don't have a ton of contract work to do, if you will. But we're like everybody else. We'll look and see ways that we can improve our team, knowing the dollars that are available to us, and just getting a sense of the marketplace too. Right, we're a couple of days removed from being in the thralls of a playoff series, but I can tell you, when did we end Thursday? What is it today? Monday. I've probably talked to a dozen general managers in the last 2 days already things are going to move, I think fairly rapidly here. And I think there's a lot of teams that are all doing the same thing as looking at their rosters. How do you make it better? But knowing that the available space and the challenges of a flat cap, but we're certainly prepared to it won't be an excuse, Eric, to get what needs to be done.
We're going to end here with Cami Kepke. Cami, go ahead.
Sorry, my question got asked. I just forgot to unraise my hand.
No problem. Josh Clipperton with you.
Hey, thanks for doing this, Brad. It's sort of a bit of a follow-up, but I'm just wondering across the league what you're expecting in terms of this flat cap world. Some GMs have talked about, maybe there's going to be more hockey trades, especially at the draft around free agency. What do you sort of envision in this unprecedented time?
Well, Josh, I think just that it's unprecedented. When I say unprecedented, I don't know if the flat cap is as unprecedented. We didn't have a lot of cap growth last year, or maybe not as much as was anticipated. It's interesting, a couple of weeks prior to the pause, we were at a GM's meeting in Florida, and at that time the discussion around the cap was at a low end of 84 to a high end of potentially 88, depending on if the PA accepted the qualifier or the inflator and those types of things. So now it's a significantly different world, if you will, as opposed to the one we're in. But I think it's going to be, like a lot of summers. There'll be lots of activity. There'll be lots of discussion. It'll take some work, no question. But that's the job in front of us. I think you're really, it's not just this year, but I think for the foreseeable future, we're probably looking at little to little cap growth, and so that's a reality that we all have to face, and we just got to make the best decisions we possibly can. So I certainly think there'll be lots of dialogue, which is not unique, and if the discussions go the way they've been going even in the last 48 hours, there's certainly lots of teams that are looking to make change or have issues that they've got to deal with as it relates to the cap. And so you look at it and see if there's opportunities for you and those. So as much as it's a new world, I think a lot of the bricks and mortars of the business that takes place will be similar to what you have in previous seasons.